All right, so now I'm feeling pretty confident with my overall composition. The shapes are holding up. I'm looking over at the still life and back at my screen, and I think things are on the right track. Now, years ago, I purchased a set of brushes from an artist. I think his last name is Frenden, Frenden. These were brushes for simulating pencils and different kinds of inking tools. And I still have those loaded in my system. And I think I'm going to work with the brush because it's just a really... Well, let's just first look at a couple of these. And I have these gathered in what's called the tool presets. Photoshop has a number of places where you can save your brushes. One of the newer developments is the brushes panels folder feature. They might be called brush groups. So I'm going to pull that out here. Open it up. So you can have hundreds of brushes, I guess possibly hundreds of brushes. You see all of these here. They're being displayed with the brush tip shape and the stroke profile of what happens when you paint with it. Some of these are custom brushes that I made and just never deleted. So you can see these can really accumulate, but now there's a feature where you can gather brushes into groups, give them a name, and reduce the amount of scrolling that you have to do. And prior to that, you had another option, which was the tool presets panel. So every tool, every paint tool in Photoshop can have, so here's the Chrome Stamp tool. I have no presets for that one. Here is the paint bucket tool. Here's a preset just for that specific tool. So I'm going to get information for the current tool only. That will reduce the list that's displayed here. If I turn that off, I can browse all of the available tool presets. These are saved in a file called a .tpl file. I think it's for a tool preset list, possibly. So all I had to do was download the file, save it somewhere on my hard drive, and then it's just as easy as going to load tool presets, and I navigate to the file, and then load them. So that has been one way for creatives to share brushes that they've created and sometimes sell them. So I'm going to choose just share a few of these. So I have a layer that is, let's see what's going on over here. Those were the polygons. Okay, I'll use those later and put those in the folder group. So I've added another layer that is going to behave like a sheet of tracing paper. It's going to fade everything out, and it's mainly because everything is right now on a background layer. The background layer's opacity cannot be changed. If I make this background layer a floating layer and leave it at the bottom, then lowering the opacity will reveal the transparency grid. And I'm not a big fan of seeing that while I work. Right, so I'm going to leave the background layer the way it is. So just did a couple of undos. And then I add this color fill layer that can be adjusted and deleted later. Maybe as opaque or transparent as I want. And then I can take my new layer here and do a select all and delete. And I can start drawing. So let me just demonstrate what these brushes are able to do. Really nicely built. When you purchase brushes or if you download brushes that you're shared, spend some time in your brush settings, regardless of what application you're using. Spend some time in the brush settings and try to kind of reverse engineer try to understand how the brush was built. What settings are they using? What's turned on? What's turned off? You'll learn a lot that way. So here's the first one. Okay, so I can go with a light pressure to heavy pressure, and I don't think I'm going to have that. I might want to make my settings a little less responsive, my pressure sensitivity a little bit less responsive. So I'm going to increase to the next level of firmness. Hopefully this will work. If not, I'll just try something else. So that's the organic one. Here is the nib. So you see I have a little pressure. It takes a little bit more effort to get that mark to happen. And then I have the inker brush. This is going to give me a little bit of texture if I go with light pressure. Also experimenting with kind of tilting my pen to see if that might activate something else. Okay. And then of course increasing and decreasing the diameter will also influence the kind of mark I'm able to make. So I'm feeling like I want to back off just a little bit on the firmness of my tip feel. And now I'm ready to draw. Okay, so I'm just going to travel around the contours. Now the level of magnification that's going to be totally personal preference. So see how these are going. I'll just start like this. And I think my method is going to be to let the outer edges of each object be relatively heavy. And then try to draw every outer contour with as much continuity and smoothness as possible. And this is always still, even after all these years of using these tools, this is still, at least with the first strokes, there's still just a little bit of discomfort. I'm trying to make sure I have control. So, for example, I'm feeling some tension in the shoulder of my drawing hand. I'm left-handed, so I just move my elbow out a little bit, trying to relax my shoulder. And with each mark, I'm looking at the object, or looking at the vegetable, then looking back at my screen, looking at what I want to draw, and then as I draw, I can glance back and forth, mostly just moving my eyes, not my head. And that way, I have Command Z, and that way I am doing something that's maybe similar to not quite a blind contour, but it is a contour drawing, of course. And I'm making decisions about which edges, because there's a lot of complexity in there. I have reflected stuff, I have other things going on. You can make corrections, but I make a decision about what edges, what's going to become an edge, what's going to be kept as an edge. I'm already noticing, I think it's because of how I'm sitting here, that I do need to make a correction. Our eyes will, from time to time, mislead us. Or, actually, it's not even, I don't think it's that. I think it's, if we don't trust the process of carefully observing, getting everything right, I don't think it's about the eyes really fooling us. I think it's about us just being a little, I think it's about us rushing into the finishing stage too quickly. In practice, you could possibly spend several hours just on the initial underdrawing. The lines I'm applying now are going to be used to give information about changes in texture, contour, just kind of hint at the the surface details that the outer contour lines are not going to reveal. Representing subtle changes in color and value, representing things like reflections in line can be, well, there are lots of ways of doing that. The strategy I'm using is to kind of outline these areas of highlight and shadow as best I can. And every line I put down can be taken back and change my mind. I can hit undo. And I'm also thinking about what the next step will be after I'm done with this phase. I have a few more shadows to record. This was a correction, so flipping my pen around to use the eraser on the back. Had a little error there. I rushed into things. And I'm going to add this here. So I'm not worried about a grade or, a picky client, worrying about the details not being perfect. Not in a competition of any kind, so things can be off a little, and there's no reason to stress too much about it. But these traditional exercises, still life, these traditional studies, I should say, they have a history behind them. I think they're still relevant culturally because the objects we use in our daily lives say a lot about us if you're looking at things from maybe an anthropological perspective. So fortunately, there are artists out there, fine artists, professional artists who have kept up those traditions, and they're drawing and painting things from this era, ephemera, technology. Okay, this is going pretty good. There's some interesting light effects that are happening that I may or may not end up recording when I apply the color. Is there anything that I might want to finesse a bit? Well, there always is. I'll just redo this line one more time. I think I can do a better job on that. Taking a breath, relaxing my shoulders. From time to time, it's a good idea to start thinking about values and how you can paint something or color it. Sometimes it's a good idea to squint your eyes and look at the subject and see exactly where are the big shadows, where are the highlights, the bright hot spots, and everything in between. So anything there that you can record for later. For example, there are these little hairy, I guess these are roots coming off. They're so thin that I don't think they would add anything to the composition. I do like seeing these ridges here. The surface of the carrot is very dry, but there's a form shadow that runs all the way down the length of it. So you have a light side and a dark side. So I'm thinking that instead of just drawing a line all the way down, well, I might as well, because I'm using that method on the mushrooms and the bell pepper. But I also wanted that transition from the light side to the shadow side to be met by this series of short contour lines, because they also refer to the texture on the surface. Okay. So I'm going to stop here with my line drawing. I think there's enough there. Maybe I'll just do something interesting here. Since I have the cutting board, even though the angle of the board isn't like this, I'm still going to go ahead and do something like that so that I'm forced to consider what's happening behind the object, or sorry, behind the fruits and vegetables. So they're not just floating in midair. There's actually some, maybe there might be a bit of sense of context here. Okay, see you in the next video.